I think we've got all our little pieces set out now. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use these raised foam dots to do things like put the hunter and the dog in, and put the trees. What these little dots will do is they'll give some dimension to our piece. Kind of a pain if you're going to mail it, but you know, that's okay. It's a really cool card. So I'm going to start with the hunter and the dog, and I'm not going to be able to fasten down all of it. And by the way, those little dots came with these little foam adhesive things came with a paper pumpkin box, and I had leftovers. Want to be sure not to put the little foam adhesive over a cutout section. We want it to go on the paper and not overlap off the paper because, well, we don't want to see these behind our image. So I'm going to start up, and here on this one you can. So you can take your scissors and you can try, if that happens to you, and you can try to cut some of it away. May or may not work. Oh well, we're going to roll with it. So for the hunter and the dog, I'm going to put them down at the bottom. They're on the grass. So I think I like how it looks to have this kind of airy tree with the tent. And for this, I'm going to use these little adhesive glue dot thingamajigs. Going to flip the tree over. And so what's up with this is there's double-sided tape essentially. One side is stuck to, in this case, that clear little card. And the other side has that little piece of like paper thing on it. So with this tree, it's a little bit more difficult to get that adhesive completely on the paper. Fortunately, the adhesive is clear, but we still want to get as much of it on the paper as possible and not have it overlapping the paper, because we don't want the card to be stuck closed. And you're going to notice that I'm not going to run the dots all the way up to the top of the tree, because that top of the tree is overlapping with the other part of the background. So I've got a few adhesive dots on. I'm going to flip the tree over and I'm going to stick it down. I've got some overlap there. And I mean, it comes off of the paper. I'm going to end up having to trim that. I decided I wanted to peel it up and move it over a little bit more. So I'll have to trim that later, but I'm going to get the other pieces set. I'm going to put the tent here as well. So we'll have a tent and a tree. And for the tent, I'm going to use these foam adhesive pieces to try to add some dimension so that the tent isn't just stuck right on the tree. I think I like where that is, so I'm going to press that down. Now for this one, okay, I'm going to go with just this tree. So I'm going to use these foam adhesive pieces on this tree as well. I now have an extra tree cut and embossed. Woohoo! I'll use that in another project, I'm sure. Again, we're trying to make sure that we don't get these foam pieces coming off of the tree because, you know, we don't want it to show through from the other side. We're going to press that tree down. Again, you can see a little bit of overlap where the pieces come off of the card. And this is going to line up with the bottom of our card. So we need to make sure to trim those overlapping pieces, except for this piece. This piece can overlap because that's going to still be inside the shadow box. We now have the front piece of our card, but we need to put the other pieces in. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the mountains in first because they go furthest back. and then we're going to work our way forward, with the exception being the pheasant and the cloud. So for this, we're going to need some pop-up mechanisms. Okay, the shadow box is part of a mechanism, but we're going to need some other mechanisms so that we can attach these layers to our shadow box. What we're going to do, we can cut these with scissors, or we can cut them with the paper cutter, but we're going to take some of our scraps of paper. This is a little bit under 2 inches, so that's going to be pretty good. And we're going to cut several pieces that are going to be about 1/2 inch, so just under 2 inches by about 1/2 inch. We're going to cut several of those. We need 2 pieces for every layer. So if you're doing just one card, you've got 1 layer, and then you've got your tree layer and your mountain layer. So you've got 3 layers. I'm going to cut, so you're going to need 6. I'm going to cut 12 because I'm doing 2 cards. And these aren't perfectly square or perfectly rectangular because I'm eyeballing it. That might come back to bite me later. We'll see. So we're going to move that aside. We're going to grab our scoring board, and we're going to score these roughly in the center. It's not the end of the world if it's not really in the center. Okay, we're going to use our bone folder to make a nice crease. We could have used slightly smaller pieces of paper, but we'll have plenty of paper here to stick to the back of our layers and to the side of our card. So what I'm doing is I'm just scoring roughly in the middle. That one wasn't in the middle. And then I'm folding. I'm going to do that to all of my pieces. When I've seen tutorials on shadow box cards in the past, a lot of times I'll see the instructor not putting the entire shadow box together before they put all the layers in. But for me, I forget to hide my little tabs if I don't do it the way I'm doing it. So that's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. Here we go. Mountains are going to go in first. And what we're going to do is we're going to, we could use double-sided tape for this, or we can use glue. I'm going to give double-sided tape a try. I usually use glue. What we're going to do is we're going to put a piece of tape on each side. We want to make sure that, okay, this is a mountain fold right here. We're putting the tape on the down slope of the mountain. We want to make sure that none of the tape overlaps, or I mean runs off the edge. Otherwise, we're going to end up sticking this places that we don't want to stick. We're going to apply the one side to, so one side of our little hinge to the edge. We want it to be so that the hinge fold is right up against the edge of this piece of mountain. We're going to do that on both sides. Okay. So again, on this side, we're going to put the edge of the hinge right at the edge of the mountain. Oh, and this is going to be too long. I don't have that much room inside my card. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So see, the card is only about 1 inch thick. Well, I can't have a hinge that's that thick. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to fit all my layers. So I'm going to have to trim this. I'm probably going to have to put some more tape on this one. I'm going to trim that pretty close on both sides. Totally forgot about that. So we're going to put the mountain in there. We're going to position it where we want. You might want to pull your trees out as well to figure out where you're going to want those to be. And then this piece. You know, is that all going to work? And if we do it like that, it might. I don't really like that. I'm going to pull my mountains up a little bit higher. And because we're not dealing with glue, we're dealing with tape, we're not in quite as big of a hurry to get everything stuck down. I'm going to end up making kind of an irregular cut along the water's edge because I don't want there to be a blunt line where my water and my trees meet. Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay, so you're gonna fit your pieces in your card the way you want them to be as well. And we're gonna try to get those mountains straight. Now that we've got it in, we can fold the card over. And if we did this right, then the sides of the shadow box are gonna pick up those hinges exactly where we need them to be. And it should work pretty well. And sometimes I find that my tape doesn't stick the way I'd like it to, so that's probably why I end up using glue a lot of times. So for this next one, I'm going to use glue because I pretty much are, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to use glue. I'm going to cut down this hinge a little bit more. I made those way too big. That's okay. I can use those for hinges on other projects. So I've got a little box going of hinges. I'm going to just put a little bit of glue on that. Going to spread it around with my brush. Because this is glue, I've got to be a little bit more careful with all of it. So I fold my piece over and I'm going to put a paper clip on this hinge so that it'll set. There you go. I'm going to take another hinge and I'm going to trim it down. And I'm going to put glue on one side of it as well. Spread it around with my paintbrush. I want the fold of that hinge to line up with the edge of my piece. I'm going to put a paper clip on that. Set that aside. Going to do the same thing with the water piece, and I'm going to show you that we did not actually just waste those paper pieces that we trimmed. I'm going to fold one of those in half. We're going to have a little hinge. Going to make sure that the fold of the hinge aligns with the edge of the paper. Put a paper clip on it to hold it. You could put a weight over it. It's up to you. Okay, I'm going to use another one of these trimmed pieces of hinge. So on this, remember, we've got some 3D pieces that we stuck down with those foam pieces of adhesive. So we want to try to make sure that we don't squish those as we're applying the hinges and putting the paper clip on. So we're going to set these all aside, let them dry. I'm going to work on my other card and